Vikings was never going to be a series for the faint-hearted, and it couldn't be. The show tells the story of a history steeped in war and a people forged by violence. Battle scenes are vivid and full of blood and gore. The one-on-one fights don't hold back, and just for good measure, the torture scenes are horrific. Join us in this video as we explore the biggest and best battles in the series. First up, the battle for Kattegat. Raids on foreign shores are how the Vikings established their fearsome reputation, but they spent even more time fighting among themselves, and the fights over the rulership of Kattegat are undoubtedly the most violent and prolonged in the series. The first major conflict arises when Jarl Borg is alienated by Ragnar. Borg takes Kattegat, while Horik and Ragnar are staging a raid in Wessex. When he returns, Ragnar and Borg go head-to-head. Ragnar is victorious, and Borg is put to death when Ragnar draws the traditional blood eagle on his back. It was a huge battle for this point in Viking history, although it paled in comparison to future battles. Also, in the early seasons, impactful raids against the English and Saxons were staged. These resulted in spectacular battles, but these didn't have the scope or size of later battles either. For his first raid, Ragnar took only one boat, and he ransacked a monastery. It did seem to set the scene for those early expeditions Ragnar launched in Northumbria. They were always with small forces, and they were quick. This resulted in relatively small battle scenes. When they set sail for Wessex in Season 2, though, Ragnar and Horik's joint force is larger, and so is that of King Aelle and King Ecbert. The Vikings suffered a notable defeat, mostly due to divisions within their own ranks, and also the Roman-like tactics the Northumbrians employed. This sojourn into Wessex set the scene for the larger battles fought between combined forces that would become the staple fare of the rest of the series. Now, when the sons of a notorious Viking set out on a revenge mission, blood will be spilled. That's a given. But there is also the chance that communities will be uprooted and cultures usurped. Stay with us. We'll bring you the revenge of Ragnar's sons in a moment. Then, Ragnarok. In Season 5, Kattegat is ruled by Ivar. He's become a tyrant and has declared himself a god. Bjorn returns with King Harald to reclaim the town from his brother. The result is actually two battles rolled into one and split by a retreat, however temporary. The first part is a mad rush for Kattegat's walls. Bjorn is unable to breach them and retreats. Victory seems to be out of reach. Ivar is well ensconced, and his defenses impenetrable. Freydis, Ivar's wife, makes her way out of Kattegat, joins up with Bjorn and his forces, and leads them into Kattegat. The ensuing battle is still small by comparison to the bigger killing fests in the series, but the size of the forces involved makes it impressive. After Sigurd dies, Ragnar's sons split, and this gives rise to a series of civil wars. All of these are centered around Kattegat, and they were all battles where brother was pitted against brother over the right to rule. Essentially, it was Ragnar's death that left the power vacuum. Sure, he'd been gone from Kattegat for years before the civil wars, but the mere fact that he was alive kept the brothers' simmering feud under control. When Bjorn and Ivar went to war for the first time, two major battles played out. These were also the biggest where Vikings were pitted against Vikings. In the first battle, Ivar and his allies were defeated, but when they joined forces with Rollo for the second battle against Lagertha, Ubba, and Bjorn, the latter got ousted and had to flee to Wessex and go into hiding. Both of these battles involved large forces, and while there were two epic battle scenes, they are considered to be one battle for Kattegat. Also, the revenge of the sons of Ragnar. In Vikings Season 4, there were major deaths. Ragnar died, and this was the most notable. As was expected, his sons set out to Wessex with blood and revenge on their minds, and they were accompanied by a massive Viking force. This great heathen army decimates the forces belonging to the men who caused Ragnar's demise, and they simply roll over King Aelle's forces. The king is taken prisoner, transported to the spot where Ragnar died, and killed by Blood Eagle. In the entire series, this was one of the bigger battles on English soil. In Yorktown, Ivar's battle genius is put on display for the first time, and this set the scene for seasons to come. After Ragnar's sons had avenged his death, they advanced on and took Yorktown. This battle happens during the time King Ethelwulf and Bishop Hegmund were attempting to take it back. In this battle, courtesy of Ivar, spikes, burning oil, and traps were used. Ivar's bloodlust spilled over and placed Yorktown under Viking control for some time to come. It wasn't all a succession of victories victories for the Vikings, though. They suffered a crushing defeat against the Rus after the latter made a first major incursion into Scandinavia. This happened at the Battle for Vestfold. Ivar and Prince Oleg of Kiev worked together to plan the invasion. They managed to land on the shores close to Vestfold, and Ivar's strategy was to split the forces in two so they could take the stronghold. This battle pitched 13,000 Rus warriors against around 2,000 Vikings, and it is here that Bjorn is fatally wounded. By Viking standards, this battle was massive, but it wasn't the biggest we saw in the series. To see how the biggest battle in the entire Viking series was pitched and came together, keep watching. It pits Alfred and Ivar against one another and is undoubtedly the biggest battle scene in all seasons of Vikings. Now, the Rus versus Kattegat. When Prince Oleg and Ivar took the impressive victory at Vestfold, their next move was against Kattegat, but here they fell short. Two things happened that caused this. Firstly, the Rus forces believed Bjorn Ironside to be dead, but here he was, leading the army. Secondly, it was simply the sheer numbers and might of the Viking army. All the kings and earls of Norway sent men, and this gave Bjorn thousands of warriors to pitch against the Rus forces. This was undoubtedly one of the biggest clashes in the entire Viking series. One of the most epic battles in the early Viking seasons was the Siege of Paris. It went on for an entire 3 episodes and is one of the most profound battles of the entire series. With Ragnar at the head of the Viking forces, the battle was presented as a series of wall attacks, gate attacks, and multiple frontal assaults. Eventually, the Vikings overran, took, and sacked the city. In terms of the sheer size of the forces involved, this was one of the biggest battles in the entire series. Multiple unlikely alliances between earls were forged to make this battle a success, but also the ambition of the filmmakers, as is evident in the end result. And the time it covers makes it the most memorable battle Vikings offered viewers. Watch to the end to see which of the sons of Ragnar survived and why. Also, there is the battle between Alfred and Ivar. The biggest battle scene is the final one. The Wessex and Viking forces are joined in the last clash by the forces of King Alfred. It is also in this battle that Ivar dies. It is a war fest that stretches over a multiplicity of bigger and smaller clashes and brings together two enormous armies. And it also puts Ivar's tactical brilliance on display one last time. The Wessex army also gets taken down, regardless of its size. But towards the end, Alfred refuses to negotiate and turns his back on the Viking warriors without bartering or negotiating. This is something no other Saxon king has ever managed to do. Both Harold and Ivar die in this battle, and it was the largest in both payoff and impact in the series. Finally, did Ragnar's sons surpass their father's legacy? Either Ragnar or one or more of his sons feature in every battle scene throughout the Vikings series. The most powerful characters in Vikings are Ubba, Ivar, Hvitserk, Sigurd, and of course, Bjorn. Each one carries a distinguishable part of Ragnar's character. Ubba and Bjorn are explorers. The warmonger and tactician are undoubtedly Ivar, and Hvitserk is the one that continually questions faith. And all 5 are powerful forces to be reckoned with in war and battle, just like their father. Only 2 of the 5 sons make it all the way to the end of Vikings. Is this because they are the most powerful and capable on the battlefield? Did they simply make the right tactical decisions throughout the series to keep them alive? Or was it something else? Vikings is an iconic series, both because of its historical accuracy and its brilliant filmmaking. The battle scenes are full of blood and gore, and it's in your face. The characters are exceptionally well developed, and they stay true to the Viking way of thinking. And the inner conflict and the blood rivalry are epic in every sense of the word. That, folks, brings us to the end of this video. Remember to join us for our next upload. Thanks for staying with us.